Today's High Performance Podcast is brought to you by Josh Phegan Digital. It's the only place to track and keep yourself accountable by looking at all of the essential numbers, from buyer appointments, market appraisals and listing appointments, to listings, sales and income, and working in 45-minute sessions. You'll find it all on Josh Phegan Digital. Welcome to High Performance, the podcast featuring Josh Phegan and Alexander Phillips. Alexander, like I was reading, the book about Elon Musk, and the interesting conversation that he was talking about, that in the factory he goes and has a quick look inside of Tesla, and they worked out whether or not they were on track or off track with their performance in how they were going to go and produce these cars. And anywhere where the cars were not flowing through the manufacturing facility, they had it as a red light. And anywhere where it was going pretty well, it was a green light. And it just made me think about how super simple and clear you've got to be about knowing on a campaign whether or not it's on track or it's off track. So are we getting the right numbers through? Are things actually happening? Are people coming back for second appointments? And if it's green light, we're actually on track, keep on it. But if it's gone red light, how quickly do you act to either ring more buyers, speak to your seller, change something on marketing, move on price? My feeling is that a lot of agents just kind of let things go. And I think that April was a really good example of that, between Easter and an election and heading into May, that a lot of properties could have added 20 days plus on market without much happening because the agents were not focused about actually understanding the circumstances and how you got to do more private appointments and rely less on weekends for open for inspections during those types of periods. When you think about it, how soon do you look to see whether or not something's a green light or a red light? And what's the earliest indicator that you know that something's off track and you're going to need to adjust something with the team?
Josh, thanks for having me again. I think you've actually got to look at it as having both green and red light in front of you. So
yes.
You can't go green light, great, and then 2 days or 10 days later it's a red light, and you haven't had the systems in place to ensure that red light doesn't take over. So that's where the problem is with most agents. It doesn't go well, then it's a month down the track, and then all of a sudden they're reeling the vendors well, hang on, where's your strategy? What are you doing?
Yes.
Why haven't you put this in place? So if you've got a really good process to ensure that you've got both those lights in front of you, so worst case scenario can happen, but you've got the best case scenario and you're working on both, well, your days on market are going to get shorter and there's going to be less issues and you're going to sell more property. So it's probably making sure that each property has an in-depth strategy. So the red light is actually, you actually have that in play at the same time. So really good buyer work, buyers agents, set up to sell meetings, 10-day callbacks, lots of open homes, the high energy. If you sort of think, this house is, something I've learned is the ones that you think are easy end up not easy. And then because you've thought they're easy, then you don't have the back-end strategy for that red light stuff to make sure that you actually do get a good result.
And a really good example is when a property shows a fake green. And what I mean by that is that you get one of those designer or architectural homes and 100 buyers turn up and every other open home's doing 15. You're like, oh, I'm a legend. And then you realise that everyone's coming to check out the architecture, but no one's got the deep pockets to actually buy. And a really good example of that's probably The Block, the TV show where they get 15,000 buyers through and then there's 2 bidders on the day. So it's really, really important to make sure you're going those next steps. Do you look, for example, at saying, is anyone coming back for a second appointment? And if not, we've got a problem. Is anyone actually going to their solicitor with contracts? Is anyone coming to have a look at terms? And if they're not, then guys, we need to do better buyer work rather than just wait for this Saturday.
Yeah.
I need you to call back through Smith Street and Jones Street and get some buyers there to make this happen.
Yeah, I think if you haven't got second inspections after the first open, you've got a problem. Because you should have had buyers at the photos, buyers a day after, and that you're actually having that conversation with the vendor. You should be having more seconds, contracts issued, contracts reviewed, building inspections purchased. You got to have the levers of interest, indicators of interest, I should say, in front of the vendors as well, and yourself. So everyone knows, the path forward on what's actually happening. And if it's not, well, you need a price reduction, and you've already prepped them up in a set up to sell meeting.
So what I love about this is that at the photo shoot, there's buyers. You might even have a midweek open as the first open. So by the time you get to the first Saturday, you've already got people coming back for a second look and pulling out tape measures and whatever. But I've got a lot of agents who kind of launch a property and then Saturday's the first day. And then they're like, oh, geez, it didn't go well, or it did go well. For you, you're already knowing well and truly before the first Saturday that hey, we're on track here, and Josh will be coming back for a second look, and Cindy's going to be coming out a quick look as well. So to actually look for those particular buyers. Do you think that too many agents are just leaving it up to the marketing and hoping that the marketing is going to do the work? Whereas you're also looking at what relationships here, guys, have we got to get to actually make sure that this thing is on track?
to keep these green lights going. Because, if you have a board up and it doesn't sell, that actually impacts on the buyer confidence in marketplace.
Big time.
And if more and more of those happens with your name on it, then you actually get known as the agent who doesn't sell stuff. So it's really, really important, because that then loses buyer confidence. And I know with you that if you've got something listed, mate, I've got to declare interest like in the first 6 or so days, because if I don't, I'm not going to be in the run for the negotiations, given the speed and the intensity and the work that you're doing to go to get the result.